Hi, everyone. My name is Will, and I am one of the admissions counselors here at the Illinois Institute of Technology. Thank you so much for joining us for our Young Alumni webinar. We're excited to have a bit of time for you to learn about some of our recent graduates here from Illinois Tech. The main part of this presentation is really going to be a chance to hear from them. So I'll do a very short little intro here, and then as we're wrapping up, I want to talk about some next steps for those of you who are in the video who might be an admitted student. But we're going to hear from the alums, and then we'll have some time for question and answer as well. Diana is in the chat. She's another admissions counselor here at the Illinois Institute of Technology. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Diana, or you can just ask those in the main chat. We won't stop for questions as we're going, but we'll wait and save those for that panel discussion towards the end of the presentation. You're going to hear from 4 alumni. They'll each talk for about 5 minutes or so about some of their experiences at the university, and then we'll do that question and answer session. So just to give you an idea of who we have here, again, my name is Will. I'm the admissions counselor here in the corner. And then we have 4 of our facilitators who are joining us. So they are going to get a chance to introduce themselves here in the next 4 slides and let you learn a little bit more about their time at Illinois Tech and the experiences they had. And that's what I already said for you. And first up, we have Christina.
Hi, everyone. I wasn't ready to go first, but...
Oh, I'm sorry. If you want, are you good?
I'm just kidding. It's fine.
All right.
I don't know if I'm going to use all the 5 minutes. So if anyone has, I don't know what you guys feel about this, but I can either, go as long as I go, or if anyone has any immediate questions, I can address those too. I actually graduated with a major in psychology, though sociology looks very interesting. I wish I would have had time to do that too. And it also, I think it's also offered through the same college, through Lewis College of Human Sciences. Let's see, I'm originally from Eastern Europe, and I was a luxury hospitality executive at the time when I applied to Illinois Tech, more out of curiosity, honestly. I just wanted to see how the application process would look like. I honestly was not really thinking that I'm gonna get admitted, let alone switch continents and just start all over, but that's how it went. And so I started as an international student in January 2014. And as I said before, I studied psychology in the Department of Psychology, Lewis College of Human Sciences. I had really, really great experiences during my time at Illinois Tech, and to me it was really important to be able to really connect with my professors. I wanted to get involved in research, and I did so right away, but all the research projects and really all the curiosities I had, and just went to my professors and talked to them about stuff, I think it worked out really well because the department really fosters communications among faculty and students, and they're super supportive and encourage students to pursue everything and anything they have in mind. And I'm very active. I'm always looking to do a bazillion things at once. And so it was really important for me to find that kind of support. And that's actually the main reason why I decided to leave my hospitality career behind and just, move to Chicago from Romania and start school all over. I was at IIT only for 2.5 years. I came as a transfer student, and so I had some credits transferred in, and I graduated early. I kind of powered through. And then I applied to grad school, and I failed numerous times to get admitted, and so I can answer questions about that too. And then after graduation, I moved to Arizona State University to work as a research specialist, which I think it was somewhat largely the result of the research experience I received while being a student at Illinois Tech. And so I'm still there in a different role now, but with the same teams doing research management type job. And I'm also a grad student, finally. And I'm currently pursuing a doctorate in education in a hybrid format, some online, some in person. It's a program geared towards full-time workers.
Very nice. Thank you. That's exciting. Yeah. I think what we'll do is we'll just kind of go next in line, and then we'll do the questions at the panel afterwards, if that's okay. Cool. All right. So next up, we have Erna.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So the first thing I want to say is, like Christina, I'm also a transfer student to Illinois Tech. I transferred in 2014, I think. And I majored in computer science, obviously. And one of the things that I really wanted to stress in this presentation was, for those of you online who are coming in to Illinois Tech as transfer students, I really hope that you've been utilizing the online resources that help you determine exactly which credits you will use and what will apply where as you transfer. It made my life so much easier. And this was 2014. I mean, this was a long time ago. Now I'm pretty sure that it's even more streamlined and even better. And then this was an additional resource in addition to the admissions staff, although I never met Will while I was transferring, but you know, the folks at the admissions desks were very, very helpful. Once I was finally at IIT, I just also kind of powered through my stay there. I actually only unfortunately spent a year, so 3 semesters, plus 1 class in the summer, which, you know, was hard enough to where it should probably count, but, you know, it was only 1 class, so sometimes I cheat and don't count it. And but the one thing that really jumped out at me when I was a student there is how much of a focus the school had on preparing the student as like a member of a professional workforce, more so than on the academics. So for example, you know, once you guys start attending Illinois Tech and, you know, are full-time students, and this might slip your mind in between, you know, the homework and the projects and the exam preparation and all of that, but do pay attention to when career fairs happen, because they really, you know, going to a career fair in itself is a learning experience, you know, learning how to talk to people, learning how to shake hands and all of that. That was a part of my time at IIT that I really found to be helpful. And the other part that was really helpful is the career services office. So they were the folks that helped me to prepare the resume, just to kind of give tips on what, you know, people look for, because, you know, I was an undergrad student. I didn't know what I was doing. But they pretty much tell you, oh, you know, this is what looks good. This is what you want to make sure you include, etc. And then thirdly, too, is, you know, in addition to all this professional stuff that was nice and helpful, is the, you know, because homework was a big part of my time there, and, you know, you really had to work hard to meet the deadlines and get the good grades. They, at the time I was there, and it might still be the case, I mean, I'm sure it is, they had the tutoring center. And I know, you know, I was always one of those people, like in math class, when they tell you, oh, you know, there's a math center and you can get help, and I would roll my eyes. But let me tell you, the tutoring center was really a wonderful resource to keep up with your homework. I mean, even if I knew what I was doing, I would still go there just for the motivation of, to just get the thing done on time. You're surrounded by your peers who are, focused on doing the same homework, so especially for the beginning classes, like I took the electrical engineering 1 class, for example, that had, a lot of students in it. And it was very likely that you would run into someone there that was doing the same homework or had the same problem, and then you would put your minds together to power through the exercise, right? So that, I would say, is a very good resource. It was free. And I think the support was provided by students who had taken that class in the past. So sometimes they would have notes that would show you how they had solved that problem when, they were in that class, and et cetera. And then the fourth thing that I want to really share that I enjoyed was going back to the professional part, right? So the Office of Career Affairs actually helped me establish the relationship that I have with my current employer, Argonne National Laboratory, by, getting the agreements in place to allow me to be like an intern at Argonne while also a student at IIT. So like on days when, I would work with my supervisor at Argonne to work out days when I was not as busy with classwork. Like, for example, let's say on Wednesdays, I only have 1 class in the morning, and then the rest of the time I can actually go and work or do some work, online remotely. And that was really helpful. That was really huge because, my continuity of being there at Argonne is really what helped me to, convince them that they should give me a full-time job when I'm done. So I just really want to focus, go back to focusing on how much IIT really helps prepare you as like a professional workforce participant. And that, I think, is huge. I haven't been to any other school. I don't know what it's like there, obviously. Maybe other schools do this too, but this was like very impressive to me. So yeah, even though I don't really do anything related to my major anymore at this point, unfortunately, I've just kind of switched my focus to international policy and international, work focused on international energy safety type things. My education still has helped to, I feel, to develop me as, a helpful contributor, right? So in fact, now I'm also a graduate student at Northwestern University. I'm finishing up a degree in public policy and economics. And yeah, this just goes to show you just kind of never know how things end up being, but I'm really glad that, IIT was my choice for undergrad, because I really felt like I'm better prepared now. I don't know. So I hope you guys have the same experience.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's a great reminder that educational paths are a winding pathway sometimes. Right. To get you where you are today. So cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I have some follow-up questions we'll ask you a little bit later on. So next up is Leslie, who I actually did get to meet and work with closely in the admissions office. So I don't have a ton of experience with the rest of you, but with Leslie, I definitely do. So Leslie, do you want to take it over?
Yeah, thanks, Will. So I kind of stumbled upon Illinois Tech when I was out looking for engineering schools in high school. I was looking for a 4-year program for civil engineering. Didn't really know what I wanted to do with that degree, just knew it would offer kind of a lot of options for me 4 years down the road. And so as I was looking at engineering schools, they all had kind of the similar thing in common. They were big, they weren't very personable, and they were also in the middle of the cornfields if you look anywhere in the Midwest. Illinois Tech.
Hey, Leslie.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're getting a weird sort of echoey effect, sort of like buzzing a little bit.
Is that better?
That is better, yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Do you want me to start over? Can you hear me better now?
I think you could just kind of go ahead and keep going. I think we could hear you still. It just sort of had like a weird voice effect on you.
Okay. So all of the engineering schools I was looking at the time didn't really stand out until I visited Illinois Tech with a campus visit. And I loved that the class sizes were small. Every student that I talked to had some way to relate to their professor, whether that be through office hours or a class or something outside of class. And then there was the city of Chicago. It wasn't a school in the middle of cornfields. So just having the city as this giant backdrop to a very small, intimate classroom setting was like the best of both worlds of anything I could have imagined. So I arrived at Illinois Tech in my first year as a freshman and just fell more in love with the school and got more involved. That included being in the admissions office and working with people like Will to kind of help share my story and spread the awesome things that Illinois Tech does. And then as I got more involved in a lot of different things, so if you want to know what those are, you can ask questions later. I was very involved on campus. But as I started towards the fourth year of my career at Illinois Tech and looking for job opportunities, it was through my professional organization, so the American Society of Civil Engineers, had a career presentation for the company that I now work for. I had never heard of this company, but there were 2 alumni that came back to present to our org. I interviewed with the company. I work there now and have no plans to leave ever because they're an awesome company. And Illinois Tech kind of set me up for success with the networking opportunity, the career development through my classes and my kind of my organizational involvement. And then just the networking opportunities I've had post-graduation. So I was born and raised in Illinois, went to school in Chicago, and I now work and live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So Illinois Tech was a great connection to have to some alumni that were here in Minneapolis before I moved and didn't know anyone here for my job. So that was awesome as well. And then kind of to summarize, my favorite part of Illinois Tech outside of all of the awesome organizations I was involved with and my professional involvement was just the people and the fun and how much they are invested in you, which I feel like, again, was not something that any other university could offer me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So next up is Karla, our last panelist here, and then we'll get into the questions and answers.
And yeah, okay. So I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico. So moving to Chicago was really, really different. And I actually applied to IIT twice. I applied in 2007 and got in and got a camera scholarship and chose not to go. Had an awful experience at another school and reapplied as a transfer student in 2011. And I was shocked because when I got the financial aid offer, they were actually giving me more money as a transfer student, partially because tuition had gone up. But I was expecting them to tell me, you already chose not to come here, why would we support you now? But the thing I was even more shocked about was that the reason I didn't go was because the GPA requirement, I wasn't sure I could meet the GPA requirement. And they had, in 2008, brought in a faculty specifically to restructure the program to help students get the support to, if they're not making the grades, have a probation program, have classes that taught them the study skills they needed to get over that hump and be successful. And beyond that, I was the first wave of a brand new curriculum. I got to see how they created classes and what it looks like when you design a test and the entire class fails because they weren't ready for it, and how you handle that and either make a new test and give the students more time to study and give them another test, or decide the test failed and the students really know it and we're going to challenge them in a different way. And seeing the way the professors at IIT chose to handle that was fascinating and encouraging, because as a mechanical engineer, the main thing I study is failure. I sit and I break materials and I see how they fail, and I try to figure out why they failed that way and how I can fix that. And what I didn't realize when I went to IIT is that the professors from IIT from the 50s and 70s are renowned for inventing the field of fracture mechanics. So being able to have the follow up with the professors that have come here for that reason and seeing them teach me those skills in a way, like when I applied to grad school, there were 40, 50 people applying for energy tracks and maybe 9 or 10 applying for solid mechanics because other schools don't understand how to teach solid mechanics. And having that foundation and being able to take it into grad school has made me more successful in grad school. I think my favorite class and my favorite project and the best opportunity to apply my skills is actually the one I'm sharing a picture of. It's iPro, and I don't know if it's still the question, but one of the admission questions was how would you pick an iPro project, which I still love my essay for that. But what I wrote for how I would pick it is definitely not how I picked it. iPro was the class that helped me find my passion for using my understanding of failure to positively impact people's quality of life. As an iPro team, we started a nonprofit organization focused on creating static prosthetic devices to empower people with partial finger amputations that they gained as a carpenter in a developing nation to help them get back to work. And it's fascinating because the choice of material we were using at the time was very geared towards carpentry, but we could take our design and change the material choice and tweak the geometry a little bit, and all of a sudden we have a partial finger amputation that can a prosthetic device that can empower people with partial finger amputations to interact with smartphones because we need the electrical conductivity. And if you can get whichever fingers to have like the same length, that empowers them to type as well. So it gives them more options than they would have otherwise for interacting with technology. And that actually helped me develop the research skills and the mindsets that helped me get basically a Fulbright scholarship and study abroad in England for part of my PhD research, which was almost entirely reference letters from both my industry mentor, who's all the way to the left in the picture, Michael Morley, and also Professor Mead, who I think he's all the way to the right in the picture, but that part's blocked by the camera. Yeah. So I think IIT is not only the reason I got into grad school, but the reason I'm successful in grad school. And while I've been in grad school, I've had several alumni reach out to me and try to pull me away from grad school for jobs. So I'm sure when I get there, it'll be really nice to have that network, but I'm not ready to leave grad school yet. And actually going to school in Wisconsin, it's really easy to drive back to IIT, and I definitely, every time I felt I needed support for the first 2 years of grad school, I found myself driving back to IIT because the people up here don't understand the kind of support that I need the way IIT does.
Awesome.
That's all I've got.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thank you so much. That's very helpful. So one of the questions that we got was about the iPros and what were some of the other topics that those of you who are in the session may have done yourselves, or what are some topics that maybe your friends, you heard about some of their iPros, or maybe if you had attended, I assume all of you attended probably at least one iPro day, but for everyone in the chat, iPro Day is kind of like a big science fair, almost in some ways, where students get to show off what they've done There, I believe, awards are handed out, if I'm correct, that there are awards associated with iPro Day. And so it's a great way to learn about what your fellow students are doing. So what are some of the iPros that stand out in your memories?
I can give an answer to this one. I'm trying to remember what was one of so, you know, at IIT you take, well, at least I took 2 iPros. There's iPro 1 and iPro 2. iPro 1 focuses more on team building skills, and, you know, my team consisted of all kinds of different majors, and we would just be given a task, and you know, by either the end of that session or maybe 2 or 3 sessions later, we would have to present our solution. And it was, you know, all these different things, like how do you charge a phone if an outlet is located somewhere like where you cannot put your phone anywhere, right? So and your medium to work with was like only paper and Scotch tape or something like that. So it was nice to have engineers in the room because they know what to do with Scotch tape, but it's also nice to have some, you know, people from humanities majors that would say, okay, but how do you carry that thing with you? Like, that's not realistic. Come on, let's think about this. And so I couldn't remember, and I still cannot, I'm very sorry about this, but one of the problems that came through ended up being, competed on the level of when the winner went to DC, and I'm not sure, I think they presented their problem solution to the White House, and God, I wish I could remember what it was, but, you know, the stakes were quite high, and we competed. I was not on the winning team, unfortunately, and part of what made the winning team is actually also not only their solution, because our solution was actually very similar to theirs, but also their presentation. So the iPro really helps you to not only...
Oh, somehow we got muted.
Oops, sorry.
There we go.
Have I been muted for a while?
Not for too long.
Okay.
Just where you started to talk about the experience of presenting.
Oh yeah, so they teach you not only how to come up with a solution, but also how to present it, right, effectively. So that was definitely a part that I wish I had paid more attention to, because I would have won the competition, but I think you learn a little bit better from your mistakes. At least that's what I tell myself.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to actually jump in and build up what Erna was talking about. I think back then, you're right, I don't know if it's the case today, but there were 2 iPro classes required, part of everybody's degree completion. iPro 1 and iPro 2, and you had to take them in order. And I think that one of the biggest and most important things with iPros are that they bring together students from different majors, and the iPro coordinators or instructors or professors will actually go out of their way to make sure that a team is as diverse as possible. And this might be scary and it might seem, you know, completely overwhelming, and you might go like, my goodness, what am I going to do with a psych major and somebody from the music school? The music school used to be part of IIT. I don't know if that's the case again anymore.
Yep, Vanderbilt's still there.
Awesome. Still have friends who went there. And so, you know, it may seem like it's not clear what the purpose will be, and it may seem like it's going to be a lot to deal with all these different people that will jump in to offer their opinions on everything. But that's actually the point, and the point is to foster, you know, collaborations and to encourage you to think outside of the box and to just, you know, kind of grow in being comfortable with talking to people from fields that are not your own.
Absolutely.
On a side note, I think I used my iPro experience on a bunch of applications afterwards. Even I think I talked about iPro in job interviews. I talked about iPros on some grad school applications. It's a very rich experience.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I always tell students, we want you to go out and find an internship or a co-op. But if that doesn't happen, you have iPro because everybody has to take iPro. So we guarantee you've got at least this one experiential learning opportunity at IIT as part of your program. Leslie, did you want to chat about iPro or feel like we covered it pretty well for you?
Yeah, that about covers it. But ditto the point of my iPros were on my resume and came up in job interviews, or it's almost a discussion point on your resume that makes it stand out of, I wonder what that is. I want to know more about it.
Awesome. Great. I had a question about talk about some of your campus involvement, some of the clubs that you might have been a part of. I know and with Leslie being our sole first year student who attended, and then we had some transfer, so we might get some different answers from everyone. And maybe before we do that, actually, did everyone live on campus or did you commute? If you could just kind of talk about that a little bit.
I guess I'll start.
Sure.
Okay, with everybody else. I did live on campus, and I lived in the family building on campus because it was me and my daughter at the time. And so the family building on campus, again, at the time, back in 2014 to 2016, used to be Carmen Hall, a building in which students over 23, I want to say, were allowed to live with or without families.
Yep, you were correct, and it's still Carmen. Yeah.
It worked out really nice for us, and we were supposed to live there just for a couple of months until we, could learn more about the city and eventually move out. But we loved it so much that we decided to stay there. It was just the most convenient thing for us.
Awesome, great.
Living there was actually led to, I don't know, as an international student, I felt a little bit out of place, and that's not because anybody did something or said something, but just because maybe there were cultural differences at play. Maybe I wasn't sure, what's supposed to happen and so on. But living on campus helped a lot to just learn much faster, how can I get involved in different things. It's kind of like, being in the middle of something. You get to learn about the things that are available around you, and you kind of get to choose and pick what interests you the most. Leaving there, I kind of got to meet other people and make friends really quickly. I learned about job opportunities, and just a couple of months later, I was working in the housing department, where I continued to work until I graduated. So yeah, I guess it was, nice. I'm a fan of living on campus.
Perfect. Glad to hear you had a good time.
Yeah.
Leslie, do you want to maybe talk a little about your experiences?
Yeah, so I lived on campus all 4 years. My first year, I lived in State Street Village, which is a suite style residence hall setup. So that's 2 bedrooms conjoined by a bathroom, and there's 2 people that live in the room on each side. So 4 people total, I guess. And then I was a part of Greek life. So I then, after my first year, moved into the residence hall associated with my sorority on campus.
Great. And Karla or Erna, any want to jump in?
I actually lived off campus in an apartment nearby with my now husband, my boyfriend at the time. And one of the things that I found that was very convenient, even though, I wish I could be living on campus, but my life just turned out a little bit differently. But I wanted to point out that at the time, the security service on campus would offer us rides because, you know, I would stay in the library until very, very, very late, until basically the library closed and encouraged us to leave. But they would actually give us rides, and it was to the point where they, you know, they were not up at first. It seemed like they were operating like a taxi service, but then it turned more into like a stops. You know, they would have stops that they would drop off like groups of students that would live in similar locations. And that was really convenient and safe because, you know, while the campus itself is super safe, like nothing, I would never even dream of anything happened to me, but, you know, you're still in the city of Chicago. So when you leave the campus and it's dark outside, it's after 9 o'clock, especially on a nice day, say in May or something, it would get a little bit scary. So that service was super helpful. So I would just.
Awesome. Yeah. And we do still have that today.
Oh, good.
So yeah, so we still definitely have those types of services on campus. Karla, how about you?
I mean, picking up with the security services, my mom grew up in Chicago, and the security services and those, the security guards are the ones that talked my mom into letting me come. And like, you get to know them, you get to know their names, they'll make their rounds, and they're really fun to chat with as they're on their way by. I lived on campus the entire time I was at IIT, first in MSV, because the other school I went to that didn't work out was a military school. So I really, really wanted the first year experience. And I signed up for the service learning living community, and I really wanted the community. And I worked really hard to engage with the people on my floor. And I don't know how successful I was or wasn't, because I've kept in touch with some of them, but not all of them. And I think everyone will find that you keep in touch with some people, but not other people. The people I've kept in touch with the most were the people at the tutoring center, because we spent so much time sitting there doing our homework together, because it was such a great environment, and just knowing the support was right there was awesome, even if you didn't need it. And so that's been really good. Did you want me to start on the activities part?
We actually had another quick question. I was going to jump into that, and maybe we'll circle back with the activities before we wrap things up. But one of the questions in the chat was talking about the balance between the theoretical and the practical experiences in the classroom, that blend of that theory to practice. If you know, I sort of know what I typically tell students, but as students who actually went through the curriculum, if you can maybe just talk just briefly, you don't have to go super in depth, but about sort of how you saw that play out in your time at IIT. You know, if there are some classes where you do more versus the other, how that worked for you. And we'll just kind of we'll go with Karla again and kind of work our way down the row and just kind of work back there.
So with mechanical engineering, the theory is the part that we know it's hard to learn off of campus. So we try to really focus on learning that when we're on campus and taking classes. But I hate pure theory. It is the hardest thing in the world for me to learn, because you're trying to learn math and you don't understand what the purpose of the math is. And what I didn't know at the time is that that's deliberate, because if you learn the math outside of a context, then later you can apply it to any context. But I also found that every time I wrote that I needed to see a practical application on the midterm feedback that the professors asked for, the next day was them talking about a practical application. So they really wanted me to see that, and they were really receptive to feedback. We also typically have 3 kinds of classes, and I think if you have an older student explain that to you, it'll be easier to see which classes are theory-based and which classes are practical-based, and which classes are, we call them design classes, but the idea is that you get the chance to hands-on merge the theory and the practical and see where it breaks and which one you can trust when.
Okay, nice. How is the computer science curriculum maybe? How is that one for you?
So yeah, I was just thinking about that. So we had a couple of classes like systems engineering and algorithms that were, I mean, that's just entirely theory, right? You just like learn how a computer works, but they were not in the majority. Like a lot of the other classes like databases or software engineering, they really focus on the practical application. So like the software engineering class, we didn't, I mean, I think I only had like 2 programming projects in that entire semester because most of the time was focused on how to be a good, like how to develop for your client. So I would say maybe there's like a 60-40 practice to theory application, or that might have just been my personal, you know, your mileage may vary there, but the computer science was totally focused on how to make you a developer in a professional sense.
Awesome, awesome. And Leslie, I know I see civil engineers out on campus doing some of that practice, but could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think it's also different between like a transfer student and being a 4-year student. So when you come in as a first-year student, you are part of something called Intro to the Profession, which, do they still do that well?
We do, yeah. Every student takes an introduction to the profession.
So what that class does is in your first couple years especially, you take those beginning engineering, math, and science courses that are kind of like your gen ed courses, call them. But that intro to the profession course gives you that balance of diving right in, and every major's intro to the profession is a little different. For civil and architectural engineering, it's very kind of a look forward of here are the career paths you can have, because you can do just about anything with an engineering degree. So it can be kind of overwhelming to even think about what am I learning and how does it apply to anything when you're first starting out. So that intro to the profession course really puts things into perspective for students. And I learned very quickly that I was going to love my major because of that class. People that don't like their intro to the profession class probably aren't going to like their major and need to switch to a different engineering discipline or a different science major altogether. And it's really helpful that you get to learn that your first semester and not 2 years in or a year after being at a horrible school. So super glad I didn't have to experience that. And then as you get further into the curriculum, I would say for engineering, it's probably a 50-50 balance of practical and theory. I will say that the theory side, kind of like Karla was saying, it makes you a better student, a better professional, like after your time at IIT, just because you are going to be smarter than the other people you are working around because you have a better understanding of that theory. So it's very intentional, and it's part of the reason I believe that Illinois Tech produces such high caliber graduates.
Yeah. And how about in the Lewis College? How would that be a little bit different in Lewis in the human sciences school?
It's actually not that different.
Great.
It seems like listening to what you all have been talking about so far, there is definitely a theme emerging. I think that there are a couple of things actually that kind of feed into the balance between theory and practice. One of them is for sure the intro to profession classes. We did have those too. Even as a transfer student, essentially anyone who comes into the department has to take 2 such classes into 2 different semesters. And as Leslie was saying, they provide a very an overview of what the profession is about. And in my case, it was psychology. And so it provided an overview of the different fields of psychology. And it was super helpful to kind of help students guide them through building their own degrees. If they wanted to, right? So say you discovered that you were interested in organizational psychology, then you would make sure to look out for classes that were more aligned with that kind of work. Like for example, the department was offering back then, and I did take advantage of that, a practice class called consulting. And our professor, took us to field trips in downtown Chicago to talk to different people in consulting companies, or we had guest speakers coming in. We had to come up with a feasible, consulting business idea and develop a business plan and all kinds of super interesting things. Then in addition to that, I think the iPros themselves, going back to them, are, some sort of applied knowledge, project-based type class, more than a theoretical one, even though they can have definitely theoretical components as well. But also the capstone classes. I don't know if you guys had to take those, but in our department, students had to take 2 capstone classes. And you could kind of, again, create your own experience, meaning that you could do a research project, or you could do 2 research projects, one in each semester, where you could just build and into a bigger thing. Or you could do an internship in the industry, whatever that meant for every different student. And there were resources to guide students through these different paths and choices. And of course, the primary guide, I suppose, at least in my case, was my advisor. But then again, there are resources at the department level. There were resources at the career services office, and so on and so forth. I think that the balance between theoretical work and applied work was actually really neat in the psychology department.
Awesome, great. Just as we're sort of getting towards the end, but maybe just to get that student life component, if you could, each of you share, I'll give you a second to think, I'll tell you mine, but maybe your favorite event that you attended when you were a student at Illinois Tech. I was not a student at Illinois Tech, but my favorite event when I'm on campus is Taste of IIT, because I love food. And Taste of IIT is a chance to try foods from all different student organizations and like cultural organizations that come and host tables. And I love to eat. So that's a really favorite event of mine on campus. But just a quick, tell us maybe just a few moments about an event that you like at IIT, and we can kind of work our way back. So we'll put you on the spot again, Christina.
Okay, happy to start. I didn't get to mention this, but for a good time, during my time at IIT, I was the president of a psychology student organization, Psych-I, and we organized all kinds of speaker series events and whatnot. And of course, those were my favorites. But in addition to that, I really, really, really loved, and it's not any event, I guess, in the sense we think about right now, but one of my favorite things throughout the year was move-in day, because especially as somebody who is, as I said, working in housing, to me it was really exciting to get to welcome all the new students and talk with all these different people from all over the world. And some of them were tired, some of them were frustrated for some reason, and we were there to help. Some of them were really excited. So to me, I don't know, it provided me with so much energy and excitement. And sometimes it also created an environment where people could meet, have this experience in the moment, and then develop friendships and keep in touch, and kind of continue to grow their relationships.
Awesome, thank you so much. It's always a fun. I used to work in housing, so that's always a fun day. Leslie, how about you?
So I had a really big involvement in Greek life on campus. So for the Greek community, there is something called Greek Week that happens for a week every spring semester. The different chapters have themes. There are different events. Kind of think of like field day on like a college level. There's tug of war and a trivia night. And the entire week ends with a dance off. So those with dance experience obviously did a little better than some of the other people that were just trying to goof around, but it's just super fun and a way to bring that entire community together. Those events are also visible to the entire campus, and just kind of a fun, energizing way to kick off the springtime in Chicago after a long winter. Usually Greek Week falls kind of on that first nice week in April, kind of like weather in Chicago right now. So for me, that week long, just kind of fun and getting to break away from classes right kind of before finals was always just a highlight of the semester for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Erna, how about you?
So I actually forgot about the Taste of IIT Day, so thanks for reminding me. That was indeed a very good day. If I remember correctly, like it wasn't like a thing that you had to go and attend the whole day, right? I mean, they just had the booths with the food everywhere, and you could just kind of go in between classes or whenever lunchtime was, right, and pick up whatever you fancied your taste buds. But I also really like homecoming, and in fact, I still go. I'm lucky that I live not far from the campus right now, still, so I've been attending homecomings a lot, and I still love going back. There's a lot of fun food. You see all kinds of different things, and it's not just it's not just an event. It's not an event just for alumni. It's for everybody. So yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Glad to hear that. Karla, how about you?
I've been working really hard to come up with something, and one of the big things that was during my time on IIT was we had Bill Nye the Science Guy as a guest speaker, and I didn't go. Oh. And we have the pumpkin launch every year, which I've never been to. I went to my first Greek formal 2 years after I graduated. But one of the things that is not specifically an event, that I absolutely loved was externing at the Museum of Science and Industry. And it's either an 11 or a 13-week program. You commit to going for 4 days, and you get to do live science experiments for passersby and explain things. And it's just the best experience in the world, especially when you get to stay late and watch them drop the frozen pumpkin off of the balcony around Halloween time. Best experience in the world.
Very cool. Nice. Well, thank you so much. I think those were some cool events and things that happen at IIT. Just before we wrap up, I just wanted to cover just a few next steps for our admitted students who might be in the room. If you haven't already, you can jump on our admitted students webpage and find all of this information as well. But the next step, obviously, if you know that IIT is where you want to be, would be to submit your deposit, confirm that you will be attending the institution. And then that allows you to also choose a residence hall room and sign up for your meal plan. And as you heard, we have a few different residence halls on campus, so you can take a look at what we offer on our website. You can do tours, sort of like Google Maps walkthroughs of the buildings, which is pretty cool. And then the other big thing it does is it allows you to choose a SOAR session that you'll attend. That's going to be an orientation session over the summer for our students to learn more about campus, pick up their student ID card, and do all those types of fun things. But again, thank you so much for being here with us, and especially to our alumni for sharing their stories. It's always nice to hear about Illinois Tech and about the things that our students are getting to do. As you may know, we do have a few other webinars coming up. So if you like this one, you may have heard some things that might be related to these later presentations as well. So tomorrow we have our Elevate presentation coming up. It's a chance to learn all about our Elevate program, which is getting you off campus to do internships, co-ops, those types of things. And then we also have a study abroad presentation, an international presentation, student life, and then a Discover Illinois Tech. So there's all kinds of things. And towards the end of or I guess in the middle of the month, a few weeks away still, we do have an esports presentation as well. So if any gamers in the room, all about esports. We're launching a competition. Oh, I see one. We're launching a competition right now. Students who are at Illinois Tech are signing up to compete in League of Legends and another game that I'm blanking on the name of right now because it's, of course, I'm on the spot. But we do have esports robust offerings there. So you can learn all about that coming up on April 16th. All of those you can sign up for on our website on the virtual visits tab where you found the information for this. But again, thank you so much. If you have questions, reach out to me. I can get you connected with any of one of these amazing alumni. I think some of them gave their contact information as well, but I can also get you connected with them if you just reach out to me. Again, my name is Will, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.